Hi, welcome to Feisty Chess. We're playing white against Leah 21 on chess.com. We've got e4, e5 on the board. Let's go for knight f3 now. Okay. Something new here. Could try a Scotch. Let's go for the Scotch. You know, I haven't really prepared for this, but I know some of the Scotch from the black side. So let's do this. All right. Knight f6. I suppose taking is the critical line here. I'll probably go with bishop d3 after a recapture. Except if he recaptures with the d pawn, yeah, I would probably trade queens. Okay, bishop d3 looks good. Okay, this is my third game today. A couple of losses earlier on Lee Chess, and now I can try one third. I have time to try a third game today. Let's go ahead and castle. Seems sensible and good. Okay, I think bishop g5 makes some sense now that he's now that our opponent has castled. And if he wants to kick me, I'll just drop back with bishop h4. Okay. They are stepping into this, and I'm looking at plans of like king h1 so I can play f4 and then e5, working on that pin. Let's go for king h1. To get out of the pin at this point, he would need to, the opponent, they would need to move their queen off that diagonal. Now they can break the pin with tempo now that they played h6. All right. The rook adds its support to the cause. f4 still looks good. It maintains that pin. Knight c3 also makes some sense. But then knight might want to come to e2, to d2, and then ultimately f3. Okay. Yeah, this looks good. Could play g5, and after f takes g5, he could go knight takes e4, but I can't imagine that's good. Probably the bishop will be developed. Okay. Not sure what good that does. I think I have e5 now, despite all appearances. e5, here's the tactic I have in mind. D takes, E takes, rook takes isn't possible because I have bishop h7, check, and I'll pick up the queen. E5, D takes, F takes, G5 is more likely. But after E takes F6, he's got to get the piece back with G takes H4. And I really like how that looks. That's just a crushing position with the bishop on this open diagonal. My rook and queen ready to come in. His king completely opened up. So, yeah. The other option is the immediate G5. But I just take, yeah, okay, it's not all that different. So I'm going for E5. Okay. G5 seems like the only move. I could even simply take on G5 and then take on F6. So G5, bishop takes G5, G5, bishop takes G5, H takes G5, E takes F6. With queen H4 on the way. So which of these looks better here? I also have rook takes. I have rook takes right now. Wow, rook takes. And then after G takes H4, I've got queen H5. Maybe that's better if I clear the H file first by, say, bishop takes here, pawn takes, then rook takes. Then I'm threatening queen H5. I got a lot of good options here. I'm spoiled for choice, frankly. Pawn takes, and then pawn takes bishop. This looks good. And then bishop here. And I'm threatening queen there. Queen to G4. That does allow him to trade off some. Okay, I want to keep my rook back on the first rank. The pawn does well to provide a mating square for the king. Actually, queen D2 might be just good enough to win here. How does he... Oh, he's got bishop to D3. Bishop to E3, sorry. Oh, this won't work because the queen... Okay, I think queen H4 is pretty natural here. I think he needs to go bishop d3, bishop e3 to guard this pawn. He has to guard that pawn. Oh, now he can take? No, he can't. He can't take with his queen. All right, I just noticed this. I thought he could just simply take this pawn with his queen now, and I can't recapture with the rook because of a mate, but in fact I can, because this rook can come right back and block the check. Okay, he's threatening b2 here, but I'm threatening mate once I take on h6, so that doesn't really matter. And I'm also guarding that f7 pawn, that f6 pawn once again. So yeah, we'll just take on h6. It's really nice that this bishop and rook coordinate to prevent back rank mates. So I'll be going up a piece, unless I have something better here. This bishop check. Ooh, I do have something better. Okay, here's a common mating pattern. This bishop check, his king has to go here. Bishop back, king has to go back here. Queen check, king f8, and then mate on f7. So let's go in for that. I could have taken the bishop on f6, but why do that when you have a forced mating sequence? Light square weaknesses here. All right, thank you for the game, Aliyah21. Having a lot better luck on chess.com, at least today, than with Lichess. So we're climbing up, improving our rating. Let's look at the game quick. Let's see, let's do game report. All right. Scotch game with knight f6. Let's look at the book. Let's learn something about the Scotch game here. Knight takes c6. Actually, knight c3 is the most common move. Let's look at this. Knight c3, and then I'm looking at bishop b4. Yeah, that seems natural. Now knight takes c6. Okay, the immediate knight takes c6 is a little simpler. That's fine. White has good success with this. Actually, more than with knight c3. Yeah, d takes c6. Whew. Does not work out well at all for black. Let's look at that. I'm guessing the main move is queen takes on d8. And now, just simple development. Knight c3, bishop e4, bishop d2, and if take, then knight takes, bishop takes, and I got the two bishops. I also have a check I can give by castling long. So yeah, b takes seems to make a lot more sense. And now e5 is the main move. Bishop d3 is coming in a distant second, so e5 is the main line. Queen e7, the main move. Huh. Just keep pushing that knight. Okay. That's some of the theory here. Bishop d6 also makes sense, but black has a better record, better score in this move. I didn't want to put my queen in front of my bishop. Castling, and we've got even thirds on this at this position. Yeah, bishop g5 makes sense here. I would even, as black, consider bishop back to e7 here to break this pin. That's the easiest way to break the pin. He took a tempo to move his bishop back to b6 for a reason that wasn't clear to me. My opponent did. But they might as well have taken that tempo and brought the bishop back to e7. And then my bishop on g5 isn't really doing much. Instead, d6 is pretty committal here, because now the bishop can't come back to e7. And if you're going to break that pin, you need to break it the hard way. And frankly, you should probably break it now, before I can get in f4. And f4 does a lot of some nice things for me here. I spent 2 tempo to play it, king h1 and then f4, and the reason is it guards both g5 and supports the e5 push. So bishop to b6 I thought was a bit of a wasted move. g5 here might have been good. I don't know. Let's turn on the computer. Let's see what the computer has to say here. All right, f4 is best, and I've got a healthy advantage. Where did black go wrong? Bishop g5 is an inaccuracy. It liked e5 immediately better. That's a pretty big evaluation difference. e5, knight d5, c4, knight e7, queen h5. The idea is we're kicking the knight off of f6 and we're going to make threats on h7. We're both opening up this diagonal for our bishop and kicking the knight off of f6 so we can bring our queen here to make these threats. Keep in mind the bishop is still back on c1 in that variation. I'm not a fan of how chess.com tells you what move is good and the move after. The position is this, you see the position, the move after that move. Okay, d6 is excellent. King h1 is best. Huh, look at this. Queen f3 is an alternative. I mean, knight c3 was the other kind of obvious choice there. It's all good. But king h1 is more purposeful. We've got our plan of f4. Yeah, g5. g5 is best, and that's a big difference. That they missed their chance to play g5. Now f4 prevents that. This reminded me a bit of a French winnower when the winnower bishop drops back to a5. This idea here, sort of a temporary pawn sacrifice, but now black is unpinned, and the knight can't take this apparently. Is that a blunder? That is a blunder. Well, because of g6, and we give up the bishop for this. Oh, that's a fork on the rook and the king. So, okay, I didn't see quite far enough to see all that. Okay, so yeah, g5 was still no good at this point. Although, maybe it's not terrible. How does knight g4 to change things? Knight g4. Isn't this still a good idea? I guess after queen takes h4 there's a mate threat. So the king can come... No, the king's going to be checked when that pawn promotes, but there's at least... Black has this mate threat as compensation. black is just completely winning here. How does this work? Okay, h3 looks like the only move to guard against this. Queen g3. Huh. And there's no stopping this mate threat on h2. Wow. The Staunton queen coming to h4 in many lines of the Scotch when white has moved his f3 knight to capture on d4. Black has lots of resources with involving queen h4 in these games. This is a very unorthodox one because we're using there's a bishop on h4 to begin with, but in a lot of the earlier lines of the Scotch game, black has that tool, and I've seen it called Staunton's queen. Black can play that move very early in the Scotch, but I'd have to look at the theory again. Okay, bishop b6 looks like a game-losing move here. Better was queen d7, just getting out of the pin and saying, okay, you win. You can ruin my pawn structure, but I'm going to have my material and maybe go for a queen trade with queen coming to g4. Knight c3. Bishop d4. Okay. Black does have the two bishops here. You got more of a game than this, and seeing that this e5 was possible was a real understandable tactical oversight that black made. And it says black needs to go for queen d4 here. That's a nice resource. And now I'm not winning a piece outright. The queen is protected on the d4 square. G takes f6. E takes f6. And still white is definitely to be preferred here, but black's got more activity. White's got a pawn and really the attack. Well, I guess he can grab that pawn if he wants, but this can't work out too well for black, can it? Queen f3, we're just going to go threaten queen g3, mate. Queen f3 is a mistake now? Oh, knight d2. Yeah, I prefer white here. But yeah, queen d4, definitely a missed opportunity. Breaking the pin and threatening the bishop. g5 is a blunder. It likes rook takes f6 the best. I went for e takes f6. That's a blunder, a game-winning blunder. I'm still good ways ahead. What about bishop takes here? That's a blunder too? Well, I still have a good position. H takes g5, e takes f6. Now when my queen comes to h5, it will be with this threat of queen h7. Or bishop h7 for that matter. Why is rook f6? Why is rook take f6 better? Rook takes f6. G takes h4. Knight c3. We're not in a hurry. Oh, the queen shouldn't come out yet. What about rook h6? That's a blunder. Rook takes e5. That's back to even for white, for black apparently. So yeah, just the quiet developing move is enough, and the best here. That's really striking. Look at that 8-point advantage. Just securing white's back rank. This is not a threat because we still have this, winning the queen. Okay. I mean, the computer sees this as twice you know, twice as good as what I did in the game. But honestly, in a human sense, this pawn is also fantastic on f6. And my rook, you know, stays back to guard the first rank as well. Now it likes knight c3. What did I play here? I did play queen h5. Inaccuracy. But again, winning the game. Bishop e3 is mandatory there to guard this pawn, because once I take the pawn, there's no stopping the mate. Now knight c3. Could just gobble up another pawn, but that's probably not worth it. Still a winning position. Really wants us to get all of our pieces out. Play with all your pieces, of course. And of course, now your a1 rook is playing, guarding that back rank. But bishop d4 just ended the game. Bishop takes f6, and yeah, I could still take here if I wanted, or take there. Would be a missed win, but I mean you're +5, you're winning anyway. But I'm glad I found the mate here. Very common pattern. Really good one to know. Bishop drops back to g6, so then it's hitting f8, and there's the final mate, which black resigned before getting there. So okay, thank you again, Aliyah21. Thank you for a good game, and I worked hard on 3 games today. Finally got myself a win. So stay feisty, folks. I'll see you next time.